in here.
Yeah, exactly. See, I usually white balance off your white hat, but now I
Yeah.
got nothing.
It's all blue, baby.
It's all blue day. We must be back home this week. All right, we good? All right, good. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Recapping the weekend first, obviously a big win for our program. For us to get 6 in year one and as early as we did is certainly a credit to a lot of people. And we talked about this in the post-game press conference, but just the commitment of the university and the commitment of our kids and our coaches to get this program reinvested back into football and back into bowl games is critical. And so really excited for our guys, really excited that this season's going to continue and extend. And, now it's important for us to go and finish it the right way. Kind of recapping the Boston College game, I thought offensively we did a really good job being efficient in the red zone. I thought that was critical in the game. I thought we started fast again. That was really important. I think getting up 24-7 in the first half really kind of set the tone, and then really kind of sustained it through the third quarter, and then just a little disappointed with how we finished. I thought we'd finished games in the fourth quarter a little bit better than that, and we didn't really finish the way I wanted to, and so obviously that'll be a challenge for us moving forward to get that cleaned up. I thought defensively, it was an interesting game because there was a lot of hit or miss stuff. We had more 3-and-outs in that game than we have in any game prior to that. But the drives that weren't 3-and-out seemed to end up in touchdowns. And so we've got to figure out still how to clean up some of the lack of execution that we have and some of the mistakes that allowed them to get going. Obviously, credit to Boston College. I do think Moorhead played a really good game and made some critical throws at some critical times. And their kids certainly made some contested catches and made plays for those guys. But, then again, a testament to our defense, though, because in the fourth quarter when we really needed them, we got it. We got 3 straight stops. I thought that was critical. I thought the 2 sacks in the fourth quarter were huge, and I thought we were able to put the game on ice, and that was critical. Players of the game, offensively, Jack Burns was our offensive player of the game, and I think, again, another time we ran for 200 yards, and that just continues to be a staple of our offense, and that's awesome. Darius Joyner was our defensive player of the game. He's a kid that's really brought a lot of stability to our secondary, continues to be extremely productive for us week in and week out. And then on special teams, Trey Freeman was our special teams player of the week, and Trey played with unbelievable effort, was a difference maker on kickoff, was a difference maker on punt, really did a nice job for us on teams all night, and so happy for Trey and happy that he's able to do that. As we flip the page and head into this week against Virginia Tech, obviously a historic program and one of the name brands in this conference. It's been a long time since we've beaten this team in Durham, and obviously that'll be a challenge for us. Brett Pry, known him for a long time, spent a lot of time with him talking football back when we were both defensive coordinators, and so Brett does a really good job. He's got that defense playing at a really good level right now. They got a lot of seniors. They're very twitchy. They're very athletic. They're very disruptive. They blitz probably more than any defense that we've seen so far this year, and so they're going to create a lot of problems for us that we're going to have to do a really good job handling. And then offensively, I think they've started to get into their rhythm a little bit the last 3 weeks. I think they've really started to kind of form an identity. I thought they've really kind of gotten behind themselves. I think it starts with their offensive line. They've got a really talented group. Caleb Smith on the outside does a really nice job of making explosive plays. And then Mitch Gallo, the tight end, really jumps off on film. And so we know this is going to be a challenge. They've lost their last 3 games by a combined 8 points. They're certainly hungry to get back in the win column. They're a very proud program, and so, very similar to what we talked about last week. This team is going to come out and they're going to give us their absolute best, and we're going to need to be at our best to have a chance. And so, kind of open it up to questions.
What kind of conversations have you had with the guys about? Okay, we accomplished the bowl game thing, but there's still, you keep saying you want to be greedy in November, but it's also human nature there, right? You have to make sure they don't.
Yeah, I mean, again, we keep wanting to find the time when this group's not going to show up, and until they prove me wrong, they keep showing up. There's not a lot of teams in the month of November that have a lot to play for. We're still playing for a 9-win season. We're still playing with an outside chance at the Coastal, but certainly a legit chance at the second place spot in it, a better bowl opportunity, a better bowl trip. There's a lot on the line for us, and there's not a lot of teams in the country that can say that right now. And so when you get into that spot where you get into the month of November, I think it's critical that you go out every week and you take advantage of these opportunities, and I think our kids are hungry to do that.
Like you talked about areas we need to improve execution. BC started true freshman quarterback in his first career start. You weren't able to force any turnovers. I assume that's an area where you need to clean up and and improve.
Yeah, it's funny though, because I think that becomes more of a trend than you think. Sometimes when they do a really good job of protecting the new starter. I've been through a lot of games as a defensive coordinator where it doesn't turn out like you think it does with the first time starter, because they make it easy, they make it one read. The ball either goes up high out of bounds or it goes up to their guy. They don't put it at risk. They didn't throw very many balls over the middle. They didn't throw very many RPOs. They didn't do a lot of things for him to risk the football. And so, I didn't see it as a game where, we weren't overly disruptive. We didn't play the ball well in the air. There were too many times where there were one-on-one opportunities that they came down with and we didn't. And I think that's why they were able to have success and more so than we wanted. But I don't know that necessarily I watched the film and saw a lot of opportunities turnover-wise that we didn't take advantage of.
We talked last week about this team playing meaningful games in November for the first time in a while, and I know you mentioned not finishing the game the way you wanted, but how encouraging is it overall that they were able to go out and put together a win? Yeah,
for sure. And again, to not be lost on the development of the program, for us to play a road game in the ACC in the month of November, not really play our best, and come away with a victory that was a relatively comfortable victory. That's a credit to how far we've come in a very short period of time, for sure. But I think the kids are hungry. They know, and I don't even know. It might even been a little bit of tightness, to be honest with you. That you get into that moment, and they know what they were playing for. You try not to talk about it. You try not to make it a big deal, but these kids know. They know how important 6 was, and you maybe even felt that a little bit on the sideline at times.
Do you guard against it moving forward, or is the tightness gone?
Yeah, it's probably gone now. I think it's probably gone now, and hopefully, you get that past us. And I think our kids it's great to be back home. It's been 4 weeks since we've got an opportunity to play here. Hopefully we get the student turnout, we get the fans back out in the stadium, and we get a great atmosphere Saturday afternoon. And I think they're just excited to come back out and play again.
You mentioned Jack Burns. Next man up is the mantra of every football team. Mo McIntyre is lost for the season. Jack steps in. You move Jack Monk over. Just talk about how Burns has been able to make such a seamless transition.
Yeah.
From reserve to starter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical, and obviously depth is hugely important for you as you go through your season and you try to put yourself in position. And we're going to need it again. I failed to mention at the start, but Jacob Monk experienced a lower leg injury, and so he's not going to be available for the rest of the season either. And so now we're going to need to get depth again. But that's college football. You can sit here and you can talk about all the things you don't have and all the problems you have, but everybody has them. I mean, guys have injuries. Everyone's got them across the board. And we talk about it again. Those things are circumstances, and will be defined by how we respond to circumstances, not by what happens.
Just pick it the next man up?
Yeah, I pick it'll be the next guy up. Yep.
Overall, clinching a bowl berth, knowing that your team will have those extra practices no matter what now. You'll have those extra practices between the end of the regular season into the bowl game. How important is that for just player development and program development as you move forward?
Yeah, I think it's important for all of our young guys. I think, when you get into bowl prep, you want to be really smart because you want it to be a reward, right? The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to bury a guy who's played 1,500 snaps over the course of the season with 15 more practices because, he's looking at you like, what reward am I actually getting? But, there's a lot of young kids in our program that haven't played a lot, that haven't gotten the opportunity, whether it's the guys that are redshirting or, the next guys in the game. And, there's a lot of guys that need to play a lot of football so that when their number is called, whether it's in the bowl game or next season, they're further along and they're ready to go. And so I think when you get into that preparation, I think that's the balancing act that you're going to try to play, is to make sure you get almost an extra spring ball for the guys who've been on scout team all fall or the guys who haven't really gotten the reps, but also making sure that the guys who have played a lot, don't feel as though, they're getting thrust into a whole nother physical battle that, they don't really necessarily want to be part of right now.
How the dominoes continue to fall with the offensive line. Does Brian Foley get more
Yeah,
Roll
so
it down.
I think, so Pickett goes in and he becomes a starter, which again, obviously you don't want to lose anybody, but Pickett's been out there and he's been playing and we've been prepping for this, and so that part of it will be good. And now the next guys up become, Brian Foley, Caleb Perez, and Addison Penn, and I think those three, depending on what the situation is, could be the next guy in the game. And so those guys got to get themselves ready to go, and they got to get themselves in a position to where if their number gets called, they got to be ready. And that's why we practice the way we do. We run a lot of reps in practice. We run a lot of reps during the practice week. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we split it very evenly between the ones and twos. We're probably a 55-45% rotation group, and both groups take good reps against the defense, and because you have to be ready. You can't put a group on the shelf for 6 weeks and expect to dust them off when you need them. And so, these kids have all been playing a lot of football behind the scenes. Now they just got to get them ready to go out in the field and get ready to do it.
When you say Jacob Monk's out for the season, does that include the bowl game too?
I think there's an outside chance that we'll have him back for the bowl game, but I think we'll kind of determine that after he has a little procedure.
You had a conversation with him yet about coming back for next year?
Yeah, we'll save those for another time.
Cam Dillon has had some good games statistically in the past, but they've tended to be when there was an injury to Dorian or whatever. This past Friday seemed like we were pretty healthy on linebacker, but Cam Dillon, once again, his numbers were just there. Can you speak to his play Friday night specifically?
Yeah. I think each week he's getting more and more comfortable, and I think he's getting more and more in rhythm. And so, I think in the beginning of the year he was kind of in more of a limited role, and then Dorian went down and Cam had to step up, and we felt like he did a really good job when he stepped up. And then they've kind of been splitting a little bit since Dorian's return, and I just think Cam just keeps getting better, and it's nothing against Dorian. Dorian continues to be a big part of what we're doing. I just think Cam is just continuing to develop and get better every game, and so happy for him that he went out there and played the way he did. I think it's really 2 games in a row where he's been an extremely productive linebacker for us.
A similar question there about your cornerbacks. There's a lot of guys rotating in and out of there all throughout the. Josh Pickett didn't play much in the first half. He played the second half. Speedy Young was in there and out there. Are you looking for somebody to kind of to be the main 2 people, like to really play a lot, or do you want to keep rotating guys as much as you can?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think, obviously Chandler Rivers, we think, is a kid who's continued to develop, and so he's kind of gotten himself solidified at the field corner spot. And then, Speedy started into the boundary. He was back, so he'd been banged up a little bit, and we got him back healthy, and so he went out there into the boundary. And then just as the game went on, a little bit of it was rotation, a little bit of it was the height of Griffin. That was one thing that kind of concerned us a little bit as we got into it. He really wasn't a mainstay of what they were doing. That was one that kind of got unleashed a little bit during the game, and so it was a little bit of matchup driven, and then I think a little bit as the game went on, we started playing 6 DBs, and then I thought you started seeing, so then when we go 6 DBs, Chandler goes into nickel, and then that puts 2 corners on the field. And so then I think you started seeing Speedy a little bit to the field with Tony or Josh, and then that just kind of expanded how many were out there playing. And so, yeah, I think in an ideal world, you rotate a little bit less than we are, but, we're just trying to find some answers right now.
As a first-time head coach in your first year with the team, what does getting that bowl mean for you, like specifically?
Probably a little bit less than it does for the players, to be honest. I mean, it means to me that they believe in what we're doing. And that's critical. Like, that's the one thing that I keep drawing back on. Like, all of our success at this point is really for them. They deserve it. They're the ones that have put in the work, and they deserve all the accolades and all the credit they're getting. What I get is probably just a little bit of joy in the fact that they're buying into what we're doing, and the fact that they believe in what we're doing and the direction that this program's going and where we're headed. That to me is what I take from it, and obviously I'm excited to go to a bowl. I don't want to say that I'm not, but you want it to be about the players. They're the ones who certainly deserve it. They put the work in.
You had an extra 5 minutes of possession time on offense in your last game. Do you want to see clock management improve at all? Do you want to see pace improved at all in this next matchup, or are you happy with what you guys had in that last matchup?
No, I was happy with it. The thing I wasn't happy was just we couldn't sustain drives in the fourth quarter. That was the biggest thing that we talked to the guys about was, there were a few opportunities where we went out there in the fourth quarter with a lead, and you look back to the Virginia game where we went out there and we put together a 7.5 minute drive. We weren't able to really put together sequences, and that was probably the thing that was most disappointing. And each play is, when you go back and watch the film, it's always a little bit off. It's not like this glaring problem, but you have a little bit of a bust here, a little bit of a miss here, and Riley misses a throw, and the next thing you know, you're punting, and you're not taking time off the clock. And so I thought we managed it well. We were snapping it under 5 the whole fourth quarter. I thought we managed the time well. We just couldn't convert first downs and stay on the field, and so that's the challenge we laid out to them moving forward.
Looking ahead to Saturday's game, you mentioned the blitz packages that Virginia Tech brings to the table. Does that remind you at all of Georgia Tech? Because I know that they similarly blitzed a lot and gave us issues for the 3.5 quarters. Is that a game that maybe you guys can look back on as we head into Saturday?
Yeah, probably similar. I think you draw some similarities to it. Different personnel, different blitzes, but similarities. Yeah, it's probably the last team that we played that blitzes like this is probably Georgia Tech. And so, I don't know that you necessarily draw back to the Georgia Tech game, but obviously our kids are aware that we need to handle the blitz game, and we're going to have to do it really effectively to have success on Saturday.
You mentioned earlier that Darius Joyner has brought a lot to the table in his 1 year here, and going back to what you were answering about Micah's question about the buy-in with the players. Different level of buy-in when you have a guy that comes in the summer and has to indoctrinate that quickly and didn't go through spring.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been very lucky. One of the things one of the mysteries of the transfer portal is chemistry, right? Like that's the one thing. Everybody who thinks this is just like you go to the yard sale, you buy whatever you want, and it just fills in and fits in your house, and it's all good. It's not really how the transfer portal works. And so we tried to be very selective with who we took from a character standpoint and a performance standpoint, and you do that a lot, and you don't always get it right. We got it right. We brought in 7 kids, and all 7 of them have been productive players for sure, but great kids in our locker room. They've brought leadership value. They've brought experience. They fit in. Like, you don't see like patches like, oh, there's our transfers and there's our team. They all fit in together. And so that part of it has been great, and Darius has been a big piece of it. And you see him and Jalen Stinson getting together, and Darius has played a lot more football than Jalen has, and so it's a guy with a little bit of an older knowledge base, and talking to him about game plan and preparation. And Jalen obviously has had a really good year for us too, and is extremely productive in his own right. But it's just nice to add a little bit of that experience and depth to the program.
Should that be a harder thing for a first-time staff to have a handle on, is how guys fit into the chemistry of it, or did you guys get that much of a grasp of it through the spring?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to answer that. Obviously, you want to. Yeah, I think it's something we try to do, and we did a good job. Ask me in 3 years. If we keep doing a good job every year, then you can give us some credit for it.
I'll make a note, 2025.
Yeah.
Is Polina going to be place kicker again this week?
Yeah. Charlie will be unavailable this week as well. So he stepped up pretty good, huh? Yeah. Good. Anything else? No. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Going to the game tonight?
No. Monday night's not a good night. Not that I'm against going to basketball games. I'll certainly be there supporting those guys for sure, but Monday night's not a great night from a game plan standpoint.
So Mike, as a former defensive coordinator, what do you think when you see a 77-63 score pop
Oh
up in your
God,
phone?
that was nauseous. Good Lord.
I thought it was a basketball. I legit thought
Yeah,
it was
That's-
But when they played last year in basketball, there was fewer total points.
I'll tell you what, it's becoming less and less of an emphasis.
Yeah.
Shoot, we score more than we stop people. So
Yeah.
for as much as a defensive guy as I am, we can't stop anybody.
But you told us to.